The World Is Not Enough was Pierce Brosnan's third Bond film in just 4 years, and we gathered to discuss why we love the film so much. As ever, we want to thank you guys for contributing with your positive thoughts.
This film, I feel, in the last 10 plus years, is a film that I've needed to defend because I've met a good many James Bond fans over a number of years now, and there are many whom have said that they don't really like this or care about this film very much, or they say, well, we can see how Die Another Day was going to be by comparing it with this film, and it's like, oh, really? There are people who really actually don't really care about this film. They may dislike it, or they just think, it's not that amazing. And I've been very, very shocked whenever I've heard that. Because for the majority of my time in my youth, people actually really like this film. In fact, some people, I would say, would prefer to watch this movie right now than they would GoldenEye, because GoldenEye takes its time and things like that. And they find this to be a more traditional Bond movie, unlike GoldenEye, again, because that really takes a lot of creative liberties in certain areas and so on and so forth. And a lot of people, I would say this is the last traditional Bond movie. So it's been very, very interesting to hear Bond fans who say, no, I don't really care about this one so much. People use that defensively against it when they say, well, even Pierce Brosnan said so in that documentary. Oh, GoldenEye is what I remember and the rest is just a blur. Wow. We're going to go that far? 1999 was a heck of a year for movies. Definitely, no question about it, whether it be The Matrix, The Mummy, American Beauty, American Pie, Star Wars Episode 1, of course with James Bond, The Haunting and things like that. But 1999 was also this kind of like conscious collective that was happening in that period in time, whereby we're coming to the end of this decade, but we're coming to the year 2000. So it was kind of a one last hurrah in a way. Of course, there's that fear of the millennium bug that never happened, of course, and things like that. Now, the first time I ever saw anything of The World Is Not Enough was Empire Magazine's demo discs that they used to send out in the magazines that would contain all sorts of trailers. But The World Is Not Enough was on there as well, and I very, very clearly remember it. Putting it onto the PC and just having a look at that trailer again and again and just hearing that title, The World Is Not Enough, that's quite that kind of obscurity of like, you live and let die and things like that. There's a bit of a twist there. So, not only had we had a whole year of GoldenEye 64, but also that year as well in March, they premiered GoldenEye for the first time in March 1999, and everybody saw that movie and everybody was saying the next day how much they really enjoyed it, and it certainly created its mark back then. But not only that, that year you also had the 00 Heaven season, where ITV for the first time ever showed all the Bond movies from Dr. No, including Never Say Never Again, not Casino Royale. And with Brosnan's third movie going to be made, it felt like, oh, so he's made 3. So could it be that not only is he going to make a 4th, which was confirmed, but also could he actually be at the level of Sean Connery and be able to do 6? Or could he do 7? You never know. But like, it was kind of he really has actually made his stance of being this generation's new James Bond, and in the span of 2 years as well, 95, 97, 99, and you almost felt like, oh wow, every 2-3 years we're going to be continuing with him until he quits, and that's what it felt so exciting at the time. One thing that I would say that will perhaps differentiate that I've been talking to with a few Bond fans when it comes to The World Is Not Enough, because I think it's a very good action-adventure movie. Okay, it's not perfect. There are flaws. All right, sure. A few improvements, and it could have been one of the greats. But I would say, and even though that people would say GoldenEye kind of started it with the whole twist of like Alec being Trevelyan, that sort of thing. And Tomorrow Never Dies had something, not, with the whole Tomorrow News is today. Yeah, it's not really good. But The World Is Not Enough, I would say, starts a new trend in the James Bond movies where each one from here on in has to have a bit of a twist or a revelation or something that we never knew before about the history of a character, or obviously, obviously the big reveal of who really is the villain or what the real main twist has all been about all the time. Something that I would say has been more popular with Harry Potter doing. But with every single movie since then, it's almost like they really want to try and shock the audience by having that twist of some sorts, that, oh, you thought this movie was going to go in this direction, but no, boom, something else happens that really takes away from everything that you thought that you were watching right from the very beginning of this movie. And in the case of The World Is Not Enough, it was finding out that, oh, Elektra's actually a bad guy. She's not a good guy. She's actually possibly, arguably, the main villain and controlling Renard and so on and so forth. And I feel like watching that for the first time, there were no red herrings as far as I saw when I saw it at 11 years old. But I mean, I was only 11. But still, it was very out of nowhere. And that, to me, is probably the biggest kind of, contributor to the series of James Bonds, because we haven't really sort of seen too many of those moments. The big ones being, like with Tracy's death at the end, we didn't think that was going to happen. I think what it goes to show is that Barbara and Michael certainly didn't want to just continue with the same progressive, same movie. Oh, it's another one. He does this, he does that, and gets the girl in the end. That kind of thing. I think they really wanted to push themselves as well. Something I think possibly Cubby wanted to do. But Barbara and Michael, I think they were kind of, if we just continue doing the same movie, it's just going to get boring and there's no new ideas that we can bring forward to it and so on and so forth. So having something like that certainly made it innovative. And I think they've been trying to do that each time with all the Bond movies from them, with Die Another Day, Casino Royale, Quantum, Skyfall, Spectre, No Time to Die. Some sort of twist or revelation that nobody thought was going to happen. Whether you think it was a good or bad one in the other movies can be argued. But yes, I think that's my unique thing that I got from it. And certainly by the end of 1999, when I've watched all the James Bond movies and I go to the cinema in Rel for my 11th birthday to sit it with my friends, hoping, hopefully it's going to be better than Tomorrow Never Dies. That was not bad, but hopefully this is going to be better. And it certainly was. And when the words came up at the very end, James Bond will return, it felt like that was earned. That was massively earned. And it felt so wonderful to see that and feel it, and to celebrate Bond that Christmas with all the buy one Bond, get another one free at that time. And that was my magical year of James Bond back in 99. I think we all need to sit down, watch The World Is Not Enough, and celebrate with some of Tsiolkovsky's caviar, of course. I love this stuff.
Then Judy Dench.
Yeah.
And her mom on his shoulders. She goes, oh my God. He said, I didn't even see you there. Like the way you do it. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's lovely, man. It's just beautiful. Beautiful lady.
explosion. Robinson's reporting. The bomb was a dud, but the triggering charge blew out a 50-yard section of the pipe.
And Bond?
Nothing.
Well spoken. We were there, and then she had to go to Hollywood, and she picked up an award, an Oscar for the main supporting role in one of the films.
Yeah.
that she was doing.
yeah.
This is a very special film for M in terms of the plot, but it's also, of course, special because it's Desmond Llewellyn's last appearance. You get John Cleese as his successor. We didn't know that it was going to be Desmond's last film, did we?
No.
Until
I
it
think
came.
he died just before it came out. I think he
Yeah,
died
yeah.
between filming it and it came out. And obviously, the DVD is a great tribute.
Yes, there is.
Because this is the first film for DVD, I believe.
Yeah.
Which has the best special features. But yeah, I think we didn't. I don't know if Q was going to do another one, but obviously he died between filming and it coming out.
He died exactly a month after the world premiere. To the day.
He was at it. He was
To
at
the day. The world premiere was the 19th of November, and he died on the 19th of December.
Right.
And it's car crash, wasn't it?
Yeah, sure. It's still, even that's underrated.
But again, it's just made, at the time, I can remember thinking, that is so weird that it was his last one. And you see him, it was definitely his last one because of him falling away. Yeah, just like that. and that was it. And then he died a month after.
But it's the perfect exit for his character.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
If he was just in it again, it's a bit like, Judi Dench on a laptop in Spectre at the beginning. You could only have him in it again like that, really. I think. I'm not sure about that, but anyway, yeah. This is another brilliant scene in the film. The Q scenes. It's a great introduction to John Cleese as well. I think it's brilliant. I love it.
I just think John Cleese played it a bit over the top. He played it too much like Basil Fawlty.
Celebration, this, Bob.
I think it's a fair criticism. I think, when I was younger, I enjoyed it more than I do now. And I think because there was, especially at that time when there's a lot more parodies of Bond, or at least more that come to the forefront, I think we as fans understand that, especially with Q. Like, at the end of the day, he's a very serious guy who ends up, just getting angry and, having to be part of some of these, quite funny moments. And that's part of the charm of it, whereas John Cleese feels a bit more like, okay, he's taken, grumpy man gets angry at Bond. And that's kind of the core of the character, when I think Desmond Llewellyn's had so much more time to really develop a character that's specific for him, rather than John Cleese being his own character who's, introduced to Bond, at this time. So I think it's a bit weird to have it, but I think it all works for a reason. And I think to have an exit for Q like that, I think is great, because it's not overstated. It's not such a massive part of the film. It feels like a very natural, dignified way to go out. And John Cleese definitely makes a mark. And I do think, had we had more time with him, there could have been more appreciation. But we get so little with him that it's difficult for him to really find, a groove for what his Q would be. But I think to see Desmond and John Cleese together, I think, is a really interesting duo. It would have been fun if maybe John Cleese had been there since GoldenEye and there'd been kind of a slow build up to this happening.
Yeah.
And I think that would have made it feel, a bit more seamless. But I think in any case, it's good that it wasn't just Desmond's there as Q one film and then we get someone else in the next film. I'm glad that there was some thought into, this could happen. And yeah, and I think the scene's really fun. I mean, Desmond's great until the very end, really. I mean, him looking just so bothered by, Bond running in the original, in the MI6 building, to stealing the boat, to then being mad about it, and still showing that he knows what he's talking about. Like, he absolutely trumps John Cleese about, fully loaded and, pull the, he knows everything.
As I was saying, the very latest in intercepts and countermeasures. Titanium armor, a multitasking heads-up display, and 6 beverage cup holders. All in all, rather stocked.
Fully loaded, I think is the term.
I think.
You're not here to think. You're here to do what I tell you.
And I think to go out like that is amazing. I think everyone loves the Q briefing scenes and all that, and I think this is another classic one. But yeah, it's nice that it's a bit more poignant, and that, you know, at least no matter what, he has that. And I think that's more than John Cleese and potentially Ben Whishaw, you know, has gotten for Q. So, and it's deserved, like, absolutely.
You're not retiring anytime soon, are you?
Now pay attention, 007. I've always tried to teach you two things. First, never let them see you bleed.
And the second?
Always have an escape plan.
They actually were going to get rid of Q in Tomorrow Never Dies in an earlier draft. And reading it, I'm very pleased that it was the way it was and the way it's not enough, because I don't know the backstory to it. I assume maybe from how it's written, there was some issue with maybe Desmond Llewellyn not coming back or something, whether they weren't sure at some point. It's in the early Bruce Firestein draft, and there's just a guy called Malcolm Saunders there, and it just says he's Q's replacement, and Q's already retired. He just says like, oh, well, there's like a cake there. It's like, oh, it's from Q's retirement party. And I think it would have been very odd to have an actor who had been in the series as long as Desmond Llewellyn had, for him to have retired off screen like that. Yeah. And of course, it's very sad the way things worked out, but in a way it is like it's quite poetic. Like that's
it is.
They have this thing of he's going to retire, and this, and if you read interviews with Desmond Llewellyn from the time, even though I think he was like 83, 84, he was still intent on being in the next one. I think maybe at the time it was going to be more of a staggered, gradual thing. It was just going to be like, okay, that's it. But like, as you see, the scene where he just descends through the floor, like, other than the fact, I remember reading one review that said the only worrying thing is it makes it like he's going to hell. It's like, it's true. That is in hindsight. But other than that, I think it works beautifully.
Well, they almost did a Penelope Smallbone with John Cleese, didn't they?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I don't know whether the intention with that was, should we have her? Because Lois Maxwell was obviously having none of that. So if Desmond or the audience didn't take to John Cleese, they might have just said, well, we'll just get somebody else in for the next film, or we'll just keep Desmond. But as you say, it worked out well, because it's a good introduction to John Cleese, because you see the banter between Bond and Q almost laughing at him.
Yes. Yeah.
The right arm goes in the right sleeve, thus, and the left arm in the left sleeve, thus. Now, note closely, please. Pockets, poppers, and zipper. Take the lower part of the zipper and insert it into the appropriate
tag.
What? You said...
He seems well suited for the job.
Their relationship, you could argue, Pierce and Desmond, is arguably the best of any of the Bond.
Yeah.
They're so warm together, aren't they? They sort of know each other's mischievous streaks. They're not like, oh, 007 misbehaving again. We know the sort of relationship now. We don't have to sort of do that dance. They laugh at each other, you know, along with the rest of him, you know, in GoldenEye, like they can laugh at their own jokes and things like that. So I think it's great to have John Cleese is playing it, like you say, completely straight, isn't he? He doesn't think, he's not trying to be funny. He think he's a know-it-all who is a mad professor in some ways. Yeah. But I think with hindsight, yes, Ben Whishaw was more of a culture shock for somebody like me, because it was so different. But it was such a good choice because it is so different. And I think maybe the complaints are sometimes that John Cleese wasn't sufficiently his own character. Fair enough. I loved it, and I think it suits the film really well. It suits Die Another Day brilliantly, but that's another story. But yeah, what a great end to Desmond. And we also get, of course, Moneypenny and John, your crush, French knickers.
Dr. Molly?
Yeah.
Flipping heck. Enough said. No, I mean, it's great, isn't it? I like these little characters that come in just for a scene and do the job. And I remember sat in the cinema watching that as an 11-year-old boy next to my dad, and I'm just like not knowing what was going on. But no, it's class.
Dislocated collarbone. If any more tendons snap, I'm afraid you're going to be out of action for weeks.
Ollie, I need a clean bill of health. You have to clear me for duty.
James, that wouldn't really be
Ethical.
practical, smart.
Well, let's just skirt the issue, shall we?
You'd have to promise to call me. This time.
Whatever the doctor orders.
And I suppose if you stayed in constant contact.
Of course.
If you showed sufficient stamina. Set out all kinds of
strenuous activity.
I like that. I think the Brosnan era was the best at that in terms of just adding these MI6. This film actually has such a great MI6 character.
Isn't it?
You've got Dr. Molly, you've got Moneypenny, you've got Q, you've got R, you've got Tanner, you've got Robinson, all in the same
they're
film.
they're both in it. This one, aren't they?
It's a proper
Double O
MI6
extras.
team. I love that, and I love that it's just as a one-off, and it's not in any other film. It's you don't have to bring a Scooby Gang to each one. Then I do love that. It's great.
With that scene, it hasn't seemed to have gone viral that it's the dodgy Thunderball, because it is mocking that scene, isn't it? It's sort of doing the whole "I'll pass you" if we have a bit of a.
I mean, at least with this one, it's like, okay, it's presumed that they've done stuff together before.
Yeah.
This is not absolutely not the first time. It's probably not going to be the last. And she's she's at least taking some control in that. She knows she's got the power to clear him for duty or not. So I feel like this is at least where she's getting something out of it. It's not just her being used. I think the Thunderball scene is rightly deserved of being criticized, but I think this is this passes.
And then the little, Moneypenny, knowing
that
what she's done,
Oh my god, that might be one of my funniest, favorite, shadiest parts. This is when I can imagine someone like Lois Maxwell really doing that well, but I think Samantha Bond is just, I think because she just looks so begrudgingly annoyed, but she's like, I've got to be professional, and and then just Dr. Molly's like, what? And then she's like, oh shit, okay.
I see the good doctor has cleared you. Notes you have exceptional stamina. I'm sure she was touched by his dedication to the job in hand.
It's just great to have a little bit of banter like that. That it's like it doesn't even need to have Bond in that frame.
Russell Harnden III was the trailer editor for all the Pierce Brosnan films, including The World Is Not Enough, and told us about his experiences working with Pierce Brosnan and director Michael Apted.
It was great working there because we would go to lunch occasionally when the crew would break for lunch, the editing team, we would go and there's a great pub, I don't know if it's still there, down the road from Pinewood, and by the roundabout, again, I forgot the name of it. And so basically my creative executive and I were having our lunch, and of course we had our 2 pints and enjoying ourselves at lunch, and we're sitting with Michael Apted, the director. And we're just chatting about the marketing. He was curious about kind of the same thing we're talking about now, the process we go through in trying to create trailers. And so Michael Apted went up to get excuse himself for something and left, or went over to another table. And my boss and I decided we're down 2 pints, so I'll go grab us another 2. And so I'm coming out of the pub with 2 beers in my hand, and Michael Apted is coming into the pub. And I'm going to say this, and please excuse my horrible accent. He looks at me, we stop and stare at each other. He's like, well, no wonder your trailers go by so bloody fast. And it was just a wonderful thing that,
Brilliant.
That's a moment I won't forget either. So
That's fantastic, yeah. Looking at the trailer you did, that's the one with the countdown, isn't it? And it plays on the sort of Millennium Bug, which that was massive in England. Certainly, everyone was terrified about it. I don't know whether America was scared. I don't know.
Oh, the turning over to 2000. Yeah, we got a little freaked out. The Y2K. We got a little freaked out. And the countdown to the new millennium was, and I remember the voice on that was Miguel Ferrer. who
Oh, was
was
it? Oh, yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, and you already know he's unfortunate. He passed away a few years ago.
Yeah, he did.
actually.
Yeah, awful.
And his brother Raphael Ferrer is another. He was the voice of MTV, this gravelly MTV, and they come from an acting family, obviously. But no, the countdown was a device, and we know that we're coming to the end of this millennium, and so why not do? And there was a technique that I had used. I think it was No Tomorrow Never Dies, where I wanted the staccato in between, and it was a technique we used in a TV spot for Tomorrow Never Dies, and I said I want to bring that back because I don't think that spot ever hit the air. I was like, no one knows about it. So, and then we decided with this countdown to lead us into this staccato. And again, you want to hear Bond say James Bond, and then you end up going to what's his name, played by Robbie Coltrane.
Oh yeah,
who says, "Can't you just knock on the door like a normal person?"
yeah. Tchaikovsky, yeah.
Because we have all these right before the logo. I think it's like we have all these explosions and all this going on. Bond's involved in this chaos, and there's Robbie Coltrane going, "Well, can't you just say hello like a normal person?"
That's fantastic. No, it does work really well. But when, for this one, it was obviously Desmond Llewellyn's final appearance as Q. I mean, were you aware of things like that going into it?
No. Well, here's the thing, and I don't know if he was planning on retiring or not, but he had that. This is so tragic. I mean, because in the trailer, he's giving Bond a piece of advice, and I believe his last line is "Never let them see you bleed."
Yeah,
and he's sinking into the floor in that shot.
It's so emotional
in his lab, because we've introduced John Cleese, who I liked as a Q.
I love him. He's a perfect
and it was nice and fresh. So whether or not Desmond would have done another movie, I have no idea, but unfortunately that choice was not up to him in that horrible tragic car accident. But, I enjoyed John. I do like the new Q, of course.
Very different.
So I was not aware whether or not that was Desmond's last movie. I just thought, okay. And again, I didn't know I'd be working on the next movie. So to me, every Bond movie I worked on was the last one, because I had no idea I would just continue on and on.
Denise Richards she's got a lot more love back from the Bond community, hasn't she, in the last couple of years? That has been really nice to see. And I know she said about how she struggled really with the attention and the criticism. And I don't know. I get the impression it's the same people who always liked her who still like her, rather than I've not seen anyone who used to slag her off have a massive U-turn on her. I don't know whether has anyone here had a U-turn on Christmas Jones. Anyway, I'll ask that. See, this is it. This is the problem.
No.
Does that mean everyone, Bob? What were your thoughts of her as a character, and have they changed?
When you first saw her, you just didn't. I can remember not thinking she doesn't seem like a physicist. I think also you're comparing her with Sophie Marceau, and I think she comes out second to Sophie Marceau as well. I don't think it's actually changed.
Are you here for a reason? Or are you just hoping for a glimmer? And you are?
Mikhail Arkhov, Russian Atomic Energy Department. Miss...
Dr. Jones. Christmas Jones. And don't make any jokes, I've heard them all.
I don't know any doctor jokes.
I don't think the feelings towards her to check. She still seems underrated to Sophie Marceau.
But how can you possibly have a really iconic, memorable love interest at the end when you've got Sophie Marceau's character? You have to have something totally different. I don't know. At the time, I don't believe they was trying to subvert stereotypes by why can't a physicist look like her, and why wouldn't a physicist She was there a bit for Totty, clearly. But nowadays, you can say absolutely. She's in the desert. What's wrong with her wearing that? Why can't someone who looks like that be in that job? So the character can work on that level as well. And she is helpful to Bond, in terms of the plot, help him along the mission. So I do think there's a bit of snobbery. I think the fact she's American, it really doesn't help. People really overreact. If you don't quite like them, that's another. Whittaker, there's a lot of them that seem to get laid upon by the fans unfairly.
I would like to say I'm a fan of all Bond girls. I think they all bring something to the table. I think I feel like with Christmas Jones, I feel like there's an element of kind of, a little bit, just unnecessary judgment. I think there's something where like a lot of people will refer to, Bond girls should be classy, and there's a certain way you should be, and that she's not that. And I think the American thing's one thing. I think comparing her with Sophie Marceau's another thing. I think Denise Richards' background in film is another thing. I think maybe she's not the absolute strongest, actor, but I think she does well with what she's got. I think part of it is the name, part of it's the job. I think a lot of things come together for people to have this reaction. With that, I would say, Dr. Holly Goodhead, Triple X, an astronaut and agents, have been very beautiful, have maybe not looked the part, but they're not nearly as maligned as her, as Christmas Jones. And I think, there's definitely some unfairness there.
Who are you? And how did you get in? I'll call security and congratulate them.
And I think it's difficult when you're the secondary Bond girl or the one that's introduced later on. You don't have as much time. I'll always kind of say, with You Only Live Twice, for example, I love Aki. I think Kissy is a bit, overrated purely because she just doesn't have that much to do. And I don't think she is as iconic as she's made out to be. But I think part of that is just because of what the film's giving her. I think with The World Is Not Enough, Christmas Jones actively helps in the film. And I think some people just choose not to see it because they think, oh, it's not real. But I'm like, this is not real anyway. So, she at least sounds like she knows what she's talking about. She gets, certain things done. She helps Bond go to the next, area, and she's, she just knows what to do, and she knows, especially at the end.
We're safe from the radiation, as long as the reactor coolant doesn't burst. If he had gotten the plutonium right in the reactor, we could have written off the whole city.
It's a very unfair reaction by people. I think if people want to criticize the acting and the performance, I think that's one thing. And I think that's all fair, but I think it goes a bit further than that and it gets a bit too personal. And I think especially in this day and age, I think if this film came out now, I feel like she would be getting so much more hate than she does. But it is nice to see people defend the character, defend, Denise Richards, because, no one deserves to have that much, hate or negativity put to them. It's maybe one bad role in whatever, but I think for the film, she serves the purpose. And at the end of the day, Bond in this era needs someone to finish the film with. So, and especially after kind of what Electra's done, Christmas Jones is a nice kind of, she's help supported. We like each other enough, let's end it with that. So, yeah.
There's no indication that they're going to be in a relationship, isn't it?
No, not at all.
Nice end to the film, and feels like the end of Nightfire as well, almost.
A little bit. If we can bring Nightfire into anything, Tom, that I will. Yeah, thank you very much.
I always thought she was great. I feel quite. If you look for obviously 2 years prior to this, Starship Troopers.
Yeah,
big hit. Wild Things, if you've seen it, was put her on the map.
Right.
And then all of a sudden she gets given the Bond girl, and I can't remember being a leading lady after this, which is really sad, which is really a shame, which I understand where she struggled after this. And I think it comes down to no fault of her own, but obviously Sophie Marceau outshone her and Renard.
Yeah.
And it's just unfortunately what she's left with to do. I think she did a great performance. I still think she's great. I feel quite stupidly sad thinking you've just chosen to be the main Bond girl, and then I don't see her being any big blockbuster movies since. Like she got like a cameo in Love Actually and stuff like that. And you were a Bond girl. You were and I think she was the biggest name female at the time. Obviously, Terry Hatcher was probably the big name.
Well, they don't like her.
Torna dies. That's the thing. Maybe stop casting American women.
Yeah, it's true.
She was known. I'd seen her in a few things, and I thought again, one of those actors who if she's if she knows if the material's right, then she's pretty good. Like Starship Troopers, perfectly cast. Like the casting in that film is perfect because they all look vacuous. And I think the problem we've got with this is that I don't know whether she's obviously she's the right Bond girl for this film. Now, if she turned up in Die Another Day, it would be different. I think when you've got one hand, you are trying to create, with Elektra, this sort of really complex character, and then you've got this character who's, again, we've got form for this. I'm perfectly happy with her. She is perfectly serviceable. I think she has some, she lines up, sets up a few good lines for Bond.
The explosion covers up the theft of the plutonium. They make it look like a terrorist attack.
But why leave this half?
So there's enough to spread around to cover up for the part that they did take.
But what are they going to do with the other half? It's not enough to make a nuclear bomb.
Well, you're the scientist, you tell me.
I don't know. But the world's greatest terrorist running around with 6 kilos of weapons-grade plutonium can't be good. I have to get it back, or somebody's going to have my ass.
First things first.
He's actually useful, which makes a change for most Bond girls in the past. I have no issue with her at all, but I can understand why people would maybe there was a bit of that. Well, you've got this incredible kind of character, and now we've just got like Lara Croft with a PhD kind of wandering around, and I think that's
Lara Croft.
Quite, yeah, well, yeah. And I think it's like he just doesn't sit well. But I've never had a problem with her. I think she does what needs to be done. But I can sort of understand why people sort of were a little bit annoyed, I suppose. But I think she certainly didn't deserve any of the sort of flack that she got.
Stacey Sutton and Jinx, the other, really hated Bond girls.
Yeah, I really just don't understand. It's like, this is a Bond film. It's like, have you not seen any of the Bond films? And whether some of the female characters are just there for not even advancing plot, but just there for the scenery, to make Bond look like the womanizer that he is. And if you accept that world, then you can't complain when they create those kind of archetypal kind of characters for him.
I think essentially she always had the role that she has, which I think is, I want to say, kind of important. I mean, I know it kind of maybe feels like, I think Calvin Dyson recently was, when I was watching one of his videos, made a very good point talking about if they were making The World Is Not Enough now, maybe Christmas Jones wouldn't even be in it because they might feel they wouldn't feel the need to have that sort of traditional love interest in there. I'm pleased she is. When we're talking about the American side of it, one thing I find really interesting actually is in the draft scripts throughout until the third one, I think, she's actually French. And I wonder if they made that change because they knew they were going to cast Sophie Marceau as Elektra. So they don't want 2 French female characters, and so we'll make her American as a contrast. The other thing I've found quite interesting when I've been doing a bit of sort of like looking around and research for things is, if you watch, when people like, I think Denise Richards' performance is fine. I haven't got a problem with it. But I know, like I say, some people do rag on her. And if you watch the trailers, particularly the second one, the longer one, they're obviously using like an earlier cut of the film, and all of her dialogue is on set. You can tell, like, particularly the pipeline sequence, because there's an echo to it and that sort of thing. And her enunciation and emotion is I think better than what we get in the film. And I wonder if she is one of those actors, which is quite common, and I find it very understandable, who doesn't like ADR and doesn't particularly like going back and re-recording her own lines, and finds it hard to get in the right sort of space. Because it's quite clear when you compare those lines in the trailer to the ones in the film, they've been dubbed, they've been redone. And it's just they're not quite as good, in my opinion. Like I say, I prefer the reading she gave on the set, and it's just a shame that I think maybe that may have influenced some people's opinion of the performance. Like if she'd been able to use the stuff that she gave on set, but it was one of those things. I know it's a common thing, I think, with actors. It's unfortunate.
Maybe she needs to work with Christopher Nolan.
All right, the physicist. Don't bother. Not interested in men. Take my word for it. This year we decommissioned 4 test sites. Not even a glimmer.
Are you here for a reason? Or are you just hoping for a glimmer?
Can I ask about, so obviously Charlie Sheen's wife, Denise Richards, your scene with her, you have the line where it kind of infers that your character had tried it on previously with her and stuff. What was she like to work with?
I didn't know her. And I asked her in the wardrobe, I said, tell me the last movies you did. I said, Wild Things. Ah, okay. Well, I've never seen
Wild Things, yeah.
And I haven't seen it. But she was pretty and okay. Fine girl, pretty.
Going up against a lecturer and everything is really difficult because she's, as I said, possibly one of, if not the best female character that's appeared in a Bond film. So, yeah, I think they did feel, again, this point's been made, that Bond needed to end up with someone, particularly as he's sort of had his heart broken and everything. They probably felt that our Bond can't be seen to, I was going to say go home empty-handed, but you know what I mean? Not end up with someone. And like has been said, I think, with like how Skyfall is, it might have been a bit strange for Bond to have had run off into the sunset with someone when M's just died and her essentially being the Bond girl in that Bond woman in that film. So I think nowadays they probably wouldn't have this character, but they did in those days, and I don't think she is any worse than. Sorry, I think she's as good as plenty of Bond girls, and it's a very similar role to plenty of Bond girls, if not given a bit more to do than some of them. So
yeah.
So I've no problem with it, and again, maybe trying to reach American audiences or whatever. You've got to be mindful of those sorts of decisions, and I'm all right with that. Yeah,
it's slightly ruined by the final line. I think it's hilarious. It's brilliant. But like Rob's dad, I
thought Christmas only comes once a year.
You just have this character pick and everything. Michael Apted, you can picture him like, I don't know. I think it's funny, but it's John, go on.
I think it's such a difficult one to get right. I mean, if anyone wants to criticise Christmas Jones, I'm not going to argue with him. I'm not going to say, no, you're wrong or anything like that. I understand the criticisms. But we're in 1999. Bond's just come back. And we're on a momentum shift. And this film has had a massive, massive shift in the formula anyway. So if you didn't have a Christmas Jones, if you didn't have a John Cleese, it could be so down that actually it would be unrecognizable for James Bond at that time, and could actually.
I only have myself to blame at the end.
No, precisely. And it could be so unrecognizable that audiences weren't ready for it after having 2 very quick back-to-back feel-good great Bond films. And I think this Bond film is ballsy anyway, but I think it would have been too much to take it out. So, is Christmas Jones one of the best characters? No. Does Denise Richards give a bad performance? She probably gives about as good as... It's fine. It's fine. What you've got is you've just got the tension between someone trying to write a woman as a doctor, so a strong female character, a Michael Apted thing, but then you've got the Purvis and Way fantasies going on as well. And it's that tension all the time, and something's going to break with it. But I'm glad she's there. I love that last line. I think it's brilliant. But I was a teenage boy at the time. So, but I am glad she's there and wouldn't change it.
Robbie Coltrane.
I want to hear about him.
Yeah. Robbie Coltrane. I was with Robbie and a couple of the this freaking rich army general guy's house in this castle we live in, and we outside and we getting our photos taken, and a couple of extras. One of the girls from Australia says, "Oh, can I get a photo?" He goes, "Yes, we'll get a photo." And I said, "Robbie." So Robbie jumped in. "Robbie, come on, take a photo." he jumped in to take a photo. I goes, no, man, you take the photo. He goes, oh, you bastard. Like, I was only kidding with it. But he's very funny. He's the nicest guy ever, man. I spent some time with him, a few things with him, and it was really good.
Yeah.
He's just like a proper actor, that guy, you know?
Yeah.
It took us about all day to film it. And when they put Pierce in the cranking thing like that, and the guy I was with, he actually was hurting Pierce. Give him a hammerlock, was hurting him.
Oh.
And I was doing it, and I said, bro, you're killing it. I said, oh, but you're sprinting as well. I said, oh, I'm a wrestler, I don't know how to do these things.
James Bond. If only you'd kept away, we might have met again in a few years and become lovers once more. Take her to Renard. Pretty thing. You had her too? I could have given you the world.
Huh. The world is not enough.
Foolish sentiment.
Family motto.
They were digging near here and found some very pretty vases. They also found this chair. I think we ignore the old ways at our peril. Don't you?
Where's Em?
Soon she'll be everywhere.
All this? Because you fell for Renard.
Pierce never felt anything when I was doing with him.
Right, Zukovsky, an ally that returns. This we've said already. It's got all the allies, all the MI6 people, and now we've got Valentin back. And it's not just, I love J.D. Pepper more than anyone, but his appearance in The Man with the Golden Gun is obviously ridiculous in terms of why he's there. I'm glad he's there. But here, Zukovsky is legitimately in the plot. It's his sort of part of the world. It's his trade. He would know these people. And he's moved up a bit, isn't he? He's a bit more respectable, still a bit dodgy. But I think it's a great return rather than let's just have him back in the next one. No, let's have him back where it's appropriate. And I think even though he's only in 2 films, he's now up there, isn't he, as one of the best allies for me.
Yes, I think he expanded on his role in GoldenEye, didn't he?
Yeah.
With his having the casino and the caviar factory. I think they played with him very well, the writers. I think they did him real justice. Yeah, you didn't really know what to think of him in GoldenEye, and when he came back, you kind of knew what you got, but he was more of an ally than he was in GoldenEye. I love this caviar factory scene with him, where he's floundering about in the caviar. It makes me laugh every time.
I know nothing about that. Oh, too bad we don't have any champagne.
Or sour cream.
And Goldie being absolutely pathetic. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Talking about him, just kind of coming back in those 2 films, that's another thing, again, I find quite interesting that originally he was going to be back in Tomorrow Never Dies. They're going to bring him straight back. And it's something, when I first read this like a couple of years ago, and obviously with the way things are at the moment, I found it particularly funny in hindsight to read it. He was going to be the president of Ukraine. And yeah, right. I found that really funny. That it was only going to be a small role. This was like back when Elliot Carver was similar, but a little bit different. He had like this gala party thing on a yacht, and the president of Ukraine is going to be there in terms of Zukovsky, and it's a bit ridiculous. I think it's going to be written to be ridiculous that he is, but I'm pleased they went the way they did with him in this. The one thing I will say, and I don't know whether anybody has this same memory, which I think I've told people before, and I'm convinced I'm like Mandela affecting myself, because when you look at some stuff online, there's like on like Bond wiki nonsense, people talk about, oh, originally he was going to survive at the end, and there was a deleted scene of him at MI6 things, and I'm sure it's just people who've made this up because it's not in any of the scripts. It's not there. But I've got like very distinct memories of as a child of seeing like a still of him in a hospital bed and Dr. Warmfat was there, and I'm like, did this happen? Is this a thing? That's the thing I'd love to ask somebody with production. Is I've got such a distinct memory, and I've told other people who also remember it. But you'd think that not being in the script, it's just not true. I'm so baffled by it because maybe it's just I kind of want him to survive. Maybe that's what it is. My childish brain filled in some gaps. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But it's bizarre. Like I don't know if anybody else has the same memory of reading that or seeing something about it at the time. It was years ago when I maybe it was in like one of those like Bond magazines, like the 007 Fact File or something. I feel I saw, but it's probably me.
I've heard about it, but my only thought is that unless they just shot something on the off chance and they were like, maybe we'll do, but I've never seen that. I think it would have been funny. I feel like it could have been similar to like Felix at the end of License to Kill or something.
Yeah.
That could have been a nice thing. I mean, in terms of Tarkovsky himself, I think he's fine. I'm not like the biggest fan compared to like other allies. Just it's fine. Everyone's still alive. It's all good. But
celebration episode, Sam.
Yeah.
Okay, I celebrate that he died. No. Because I think he's so funny in GoldenEye. Even though obviously I like that he's a bit more developed here. I like the kind of the way he's written in that film, where he's a bit more serious and he feels a bit more of a threat, I guess. Whereas this, he just feels like a lot more jolly, which I don't mind because he's Robbie Coltrane. I really like him, and I think he has some like great comedic moments. And I think ultimately, like, I'm glad that he got the exit that he got because it feels a bit more final, and I think it adds more weight to the Bond and Elektra stuff. And again, it all goes back to that. And I think there's not too much, collateral damage for Bond. It's not like Christmas Jones was killed or something. I think to have someone like Tarkovsky, who we know he's got a past with, dating before GoldenEye, I think that makes sense. And I think to have the gun in the cane is a great idea. I think it's a great concept. And yeah, I just think again that like last look between them. I think for me, I would feel like that's not earned if he was actually alive at the end. So, and sometimes that needs to happen, and I think in this it makes for a better plot point or story beat.
Kind of hoping as a fan at the time, maybe he isn't, but he would have had to show himself at the end of this film.
Yeah,
I think if he brought back in a fifth Brosnan film, it would have meant less. It would have defeated sort of the ending, wouldn't it? But
yeah.
That reminds me, that links it with the trailers. Can't you just say hello like a normal person? That was on the trailer, wasn't it?
Can't you just say hello like a normal person?
His look's brilliant, isn't it? The goatee, of course, Math.
Yeah.
No goatee. That's a Mandela effect. There's no goatee in GoldenEye.
No. But yeah, the big change for this one. No, I do really like the idea of someone coming back. With a break in between.
Yeah.
And obviously it's the same for Tanner as well. I know he's not as big a character, but I do really like that. And I really like Tarkovsky. I think he's an original. He's not in the books, is he? I think he's an original creation for GoldenEye, and then they've brought him back.
Yeah.
Given the setting and everything. And I think I really like that. And it's like, it's nice to look back on some of these allies that Brosnan had, Brosnan's Bond had. And he's right up there. He's a great character, and a really good performance. One of a few Scottish Russians in this film, Tom. Arkov. The Barrowhawks were meant to be returned, but yeah, no, I think he's great in it, and yeah, Tarkovsky deserves to be mentioned. Right up towards the top of the best allies list, as far as I'm concerned.
Because he's got one of the best ever introductory scenes. It's just fantastic in GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Then a brilliant exit scene. So it's just there's not much that goes wrong with him, as far as I'm concerned, as a character.
No.
Even though he's not in it massively. He's probably in 2 long scenes in GoldenEye, and then maybe he's in it a bit more in this, isn't he?
But he has a consistent character journey, though. Like he ends an ally ultimately because he experienced betrayal by Elektra, just like Bond does. You know, there's this begrudging love of allyship beforehand, but it's only when Captain Nikolai is like he's killed and Goldie tries bombing Zukovsky that actually realise they're on the same side. And it's just a brilliant ending. You can have your what ifs of all the rest of it, but I do think the reason why he's so loved today is because he is the sacrificial lamb. I think that adds an extra dimension to it, that he ends saving Bond ultimately. And that look that they give each other is just, it's probably as good as their relationship's ever going to get.
Yeah.
And that's the perfect way to write it.
Yeah.
On the subject of the Scottish Russians, can I quickly ask, does anybody else find it very jarring that the colonel in Kazakhstan is also dubbed by Robbie Coltrane? It's one of those things, once you find that out and realise it, you cannot unhear it.
It's so weird.
It's so weird.
Weird.
Why did they make this choice?
We interviewed him, and I didn't realise it at the time. But then, of course, when you hear it back, it's undeniable. It's just hilarious. Because I was thinking when we were speaking to Claude Rudolph, like, his accent is so strong, the German accent. Like, how could he have done that voice and everything? Isn't it unbelievable in the film? Then it's both of you. You know, it's just
It's just doing the Zukovsky voice. That's the thing.
Yeah, I know.
I said drop it.
Yeah. Does he know that he
Welcome to Kazakhstan, Dr. Rokov.
Yeah.
He would have killed us all. Did you speak to him?
Yeah, but he's no atomic scientist.
I suppose you were the one who allowed him down. You had me. But I knew you couldn't shoulder the responsibility. Now, without any further interruptions, let's proceed.
Yet, there are too many new faces around here, including yours. The bomb doesn't move until I am satisfied. Hey, all of you, to the service, now! Давай!
Pierce is a fine guy, but I hate, and he's a really idiot, and he's a dwarf. He had this, I don't know, I don't remember his name. He was an idiot who played the Renard. He's
really? Robert Carlyle.
Robert Carlyle. He was shy, and he was afraid of me because of my physics and so. And then one scene I touched him, and then he go to the director. He touched me in the scene. I don't like it.
Well, there's one bit in it where he chucks like some papers into your chest, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Did he do it hard deliberately to annoy you?
Yeah. I wasn't allowed to touch him, but he touched me then.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I was going to ask you because he's the one who shoots you, I'm afraid, Claude. Well, to be fair, a lot of people do say that though. He is quite small as a main baddie.
Yeah.
Because Elektra is taller than him. He's the main
fighting
baddie.
sequence between Pierce and him is like in a Walt Disney funny movie.
Keep watching for our final part of our 25th anniversary celebration of The World Is Not Enough, where we focus on David Arnold's wonderful music and give our final thoughts on this wonderful, underrated James Bond film.